if you're a syndicator, in my mind, it all has to start with you really doing, every syndicator says, right, we look at cities, we look at neighborhoods, we're targeting, we're trying to make sure that it's the right, places that we're investing in. But what I'm finding is, other than a few, few exceptions, not enough people are spending enough time on demographics. Not enough people have a way to tell me today, right now, if I were to ask 10 syndicators in a line and say, what are the specifics of how you're picking your cities? What are the specifics of how you're picking your neighborhood? Well, the answers that I get are really shallow. So my message to all of you syndicators out there is, you need to do a better job on the demographic side. The numbers all need to be in your head, right? So right now, you need to know every city in the US and what the rent growth is, at least the top 5 in your mind, right? So I know right now the number 1 city in the US in terms of rent growth is Orlando. Number 2 is Vegas. I have those numbers burned into my head. But before you go to rent growth is important because it's the end goal. You need to look at why someone should pick Vegas, why someone should pick Orlando or Atlanta. And people talk about populations, right? But what you really should be talking about is specifics on population. What kind of population growth do you need? When I'm teaching my multifamily bootcamp, I tell students, if the city is in between 500,000 and 1 million people, then in the last 15 years, you want that population to have grown by 20%. And so a good example of that is Columbus. Cities like Orlando are ahead, but Columbus is a great example. It's grown by 21% in population in the last 16 years. And where do I get that data from? Just Google. I Google, population growth Columbus. That is a first indicator. The second indicator is income. How much income level do you want to grow? In the last 15 years, I want the income to grow by 30%. And that's median household income, not individual income. So every city that I'm looking at, I want that 30% number to be there. Does Columbus match it? Yes. Does Orlando match it? Yes, it crushes it, right? Las Vegas, not quite there on the income, but good on the other numbers. And then the third number that I look at is home price growth. I know we're in multifamily, but there is no doubt that there is a very direct correlation between home price increases and rent increases, right? It's massive because at some point, people are just not able to buy homes and they start to move over onto the renter side. And so I want to see a 40% increase in home prices in the last 15 years. And there's a lot of cities in the US that are not even close to that 40% level. And then there's cities like Orlando that have doubled home prices in the last 15 or 16 years. So the 20, 30, 40 rule is what I'm looking at when I'm looking at cities. 20% growth in population, 30% growth in median household income, 40% growth in median house and condo value. For the first metrics, I use Google. For the second and the third metric, I use a website called city-data.com. And it gives me those 3 metrics. And that tells me what cities to look at. And then after that, I drill down into the neighborhoods. I get into the demographics of the neighborhoods. And those are actually straightforward. It's 3 or 4 different demographics. Number 1 is you want the income level in that neighborhood, in the area that you're looking in, to be in the $40,000 to $70,000 range. That's the Goldilocks zone. Anything lower than that, you're going to have massive delinquency. And tremendous churn. Anything higher than 70K, you'll start having issues with cash flow. You're not going to be able to give your investors 7 pref or 8 pref because you just are not hitting that cash flow level. So the Goldilocks zone for your neighborhood and your zip code really has to be that 40 to 70K. And poverty levels in that zip code or in that submarket have to be no more than 10%. I see a lot of people today buying in what they think are Class Cs, but I see that they're buying in areas where poverty levels are 25 or 30 or even 35%. They really don't know what they're doing because they will never hit their projected numbers because of churn, because of delinquency, because of eviction levels, because of late payment. They'll spend all of their time trying to gather that that GSR that they've projected and they won't actually get to it. So to me, those 2 numbers are absolutely critical. And the third number is unemployment. And that unemployment should be right around the city average. You can find the unemployment level for any city in the US by just Googling it and saying unemployment space Orlando, Florida. It'll give you that number. And you want that neighborhood to be at that same level in terms of unemployment. You can find neighborhood level information for any neighborhood in the map on city-data.com. So you can go to the map, pull up your city, click on any neighborhood within that city, and a map pops up to the right and gives you these 3 metrics for neighborhoods. So I think that that's where we start as technologists. We start with the 3 city metrics and the 3 neighborhood metrics, and it tells us whether we're investing in the right markets or not.